The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with whispers as Ambassador Gray walked toward the central platform. His silver skin reflected the soft blue lights that filled the massive dome, and his four eyes blinked nervously as he clutched his data tablet. He knew what he had to say wouldn't be popular, but someone had to warn them. The High Commander of the Empire sat on his elevated throne, looking down at Gray with barely hidden boredom. Around him, representatives from 1,000 worlds filled the circular seats that rose like stairs toward the distant ceiling. "Speak, Ambassador of the Wanderers." The High Commander's voice boomed through the chamber. "Why have you requested this emergency session?" Gray touched his tablet, and a hologram appeared above the platform. It showed a blue and green planet, spinning slowly in space. "This is Earth," he said, his voice steady despite his fear. "Home of a species called humans. My people have been watching them for the past 100 years, and I am here to warn you all. They are dangerous." Laughter echoed through the chamber. The High Commander smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "Dangerous? They barely have space travel. Their ships can't even reach their system's edge." Gray shook his head and pressed another button. The hologram changed, showing a timeline of human history. "Look at this. 10,000 years ago, they were using stone tools. 5,000 years ago, they built pyramids. 200 years ago, they still traveled on horses." He paused, letting the images flash by. "And now, they have split the atom, walked on their moon, and created artificial intelligence. No other species has evolved so fast. Many species advance quickly once they discover science," a counselor from the upper rings called out. "Not like this," Gray insisted. He showed new images, humans in different environments. They live everywhere on their planet. In frozen wastelands, burning deserts, dense jungles. They adapt to any environment. Their planet has gravity 30% stronger than Imperial standard, atmospheric pressure that would crush many species, and extreme temperature variations. And they thrive." The High Commander waved his hand dismissively. "So they're hardy. The Empire has encountered many hardy species." "They're more than hardy," Gray continued, his voice growing urgent. "They're the only known species that actively seeks out dangerous situations for fun." He displayed images of humans climbing mountains, diving into oceans, jumping from high places with thin fabrics as parachutes. They deliberately practice fighting, even in times of peace. They create games out of war scenarios. Their entertainment often involves simulating conflict. This caught the Council's attention. A few representatives leaned forward in their seats. "But here's what truly makes them dangerous," Gray said, showing videos of human history. "They never give up. When faced with superior forces, they don't surrender. They get creative. Their entire history is filled with smaller forces defeating larger ones through ingenuity and sheer determination. They have a saying, 'Necessity is the mother of invention.' When pushed into a corner, they don't accept defeat. They change the rules of the game." The High Commander stood up, his patience wearing thin. "Enough of this foolishness. The Empire has ruled for 10,000 years. We have technologies these humans can't even imagine. Their primitive weapons and stubborn nature mean nothing against our power." Gray looked up at him, all four eyes filled with sadness. That's exactly what every powerful force in human history thought, right before the humans proved them wrong. He displayed one final image, a small human settlement that had been attacked by raiders, and then an image of the same place a year later, rebuilt and stronger. They learn from every defeat. They grow stronger from every challenge. And most importantly, they remember those who wronged them. "Are you suggesting," the High Commander's voice dripped with sarcasm, "that the mighty Empire should fear these primitives?" "No," Gray said quietly, packing up his tablet. "I'm suggesting that if you value the Empire's future, you should leave them alone." He walked toward the exit, then stopped and looked back. "Because if you don't, you'll learn what my people learned while watching them. Humans don't know when to quit." and they never, ever forget. The chamber erupted in dismissive laughter as Gray left. The High Commander had already turned his attention to other matters, forgetting the warning as quickly as he'd heard it. But in the shadows of the upper rings, a few representatives made quiet notes. Perhaps, they thought, it would be wise to watch these humans more closely. Commander Stone stood at the window of Earth's orbital station, watching the Imperial ships appear one by one. They emerged from light speed in perfect formation, their silver hulls gleaming in the sunlight. Each ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built, and there were 12 of them. "They're here to talk," he reminded himself quietly. After decades of searching the stars for alien life, humanity's first contact was about to begin. He straightened his blue uniform and checked his reflection in the window. Earth's governments had chosen him for his calm nature and diplomatic skills. He would need both today. The station's AI spoke through hidden speakers. Imperial shuttle approaching Docking Bay 3. Stone walked to the docking bay, his boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. 2 security officers followed at a respectful distance. They carried no visible weapons. That had been the first Imperial demand. The Imperial shuttle was beautiful. It looked like liquid metal had been shaped by an artist. Its surface rippled with colors that shouldn't exist. The door opened without a sound, and 3 aliens stepped out. The lead alien was tall and thin, with skin that looked like polished bronze. He wore robes that seemed to be made of living light. "I am First Speaker Bright Star," he said in perfect English. Their universal translators were clearly very advanced. "We bring greetings from the Galactic Empire." Stone bowed slightly. "Welcome to Earth. I'm Commander Stone, representing the United Earth Council." Bright Star looked around the docking bay with poorly hidden disdain. "Your station is quaint, built with fusion welding and physical metals. How charmingly primitive." Stone kept his smile in place. 6 months of diplomatic training had prepared him for this. "We're eager to learn from more advanced civilizations," he said. "Earth would welcome trade agreements and cultural exchange programs." The Imperial delegates exchanged looks that Stone couldn't read. "Of course," Bright Star said smoothly. "The Empire is always generous with developing species. We will guide your development, manage your resources, and ensure you advance along approved paths." Stone's smile didn't waver, but his eyes hardened slightly. "I should clarify. Earth is looking for partners, not managers. We're interested in fair trade and mutual respect." Bright Star made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You misunderstand. The Empire doesn't partner with pre-spacefaring civilizations. We protect them, guide them, control their development to prevent them from harming themselves or others. We've already begun colonizing Mars," Stone said calmly. "We have mining operations in the asteroid belt. We are a spacefaring civilization." "Amusing," Bright Star said. "You haven't even mastered gravity manipulation. Your ships still use chemical rockets. The Empire considers any civilization without faster-than-light travel to be primitive." Stone felt a cold feeling in his stomach. He recognized the look in Bright Star's eyes. It was the same look European explorers had when they met Native Americans. The look that said, "You don't matter. We'll take what we want." "Perhaps," Stone said carefully, "you should consult with your superiors about Earth's status. We're happy to prove our technological capabilities." "That won't be necessary." Bright Star handed him a tablet-like device. "These are the Imperial protocols for planetary integration. Your leaders will sign them within 3 days. Resistance is inadvisable." Stone took the tablet, his face neutral. "I'll deliver this to the Council. But I should warn you, humans don't respond well to threats." "It's not a threat," Bright Star said, turning to leave. "It's simply how things are done. The Empire has brought civilization to 1,000 worlds. You should be grateful for our attention." As the Imperial shuttle departed, Stone looked down at the tablet. The protocols were a thinly disguised surrender document. Earth would become an Imperial resource world, its people reduced to second-class citizens in their own solar system. He touched his communication device. "Get me the Defense Council," he said quietly, "and send word to the Mars colonies. Tell them to activate Protocol Darkness. We might need those hidden shipyards sooner than we thought." In the distance, the Imperial ships hung in space like wealthy lords looking down at a peasant village, never suspecting that the simple farmers might have teeth of their own. Admiral Reed watched the Imperial ships through the lunar base's hidden cameras. They had appeared exactly where he expected, high orbit over Earth's major cities. A classic intimidation tactic. The Empire's deadline for Earth's surrender had passed 2 hours ago. "Status of civilian evacuation?" he asked quietly. "Complete, sir," his second-in-command reported. "Operation Underground is in effect. Surface cities are running on automated systems. All civilians are in the deep shelters." Reed nodded. For 15 years, Earth had prepared for this moment. While politicians talked about peace and trade, military planners had worked on the assumption that humanity's first contact with aliens might not be friendly. Now those preparations would be tested. The Imperial commander's voice boomed through all communication channels. "Attention, primitive species. Your time for peaceful integration has expired. The Empire will now demonstrate the price of defiance." Reed pressed a button. "This is Admiral Reed of the Earth Defense Force. Your ships are in restricted space. Withdraw immediately." Laughter echoed through the channel. "You dare to give orders? Watch and learn your place, primitives." The lead Imperial ship fired a bright beam of energy at New York City, but instead of destruction, they found only empty buildings. Their sensors, designed to detect advanced energy signatures, had missed Earth's simple but effective evacuation systems. "Last warning," Reed said calmly. "Withdraw or face consequences. Your species' arrogance ends now," the Imperial commander replied. His ships moved to surround Earth, their weapons charging. Reed looked at his display. The Empire's ships had moved exactly where he wanted them. Their formation was perfect, their tactics straight from their military manual. They were predictable. "Launch the rocks," he ordered quietly. Across the lunar surface, hidden doors opened. But instead of missiles or energy weapons, they launched simple chunks of metal. Hundreds of them, accelerated by electromagnetic rails to incredible speeds. The Empire's sensors, calibrated to detect energy weapons, barely noticed them. The first chunks hit 3 Imperial ships before they could react. At the speeds they were traveling, the simple metal projectiles hit with the force of nuclear weapons. Imperial shields, designed to stop energy beams, failed against simple kinetic impacts. "Impossible," the Imperial commander shouted. "Your weapons are primitive." "Yes," Reed agreed. "That's what makes them dangerous." He pressed another button. "All units, execute pattern break." Across the solar system, hidden doors opened in asteroids and abandoned space stations. Small, nimble ships emerged, Earth's real space fleet. They had no fancy energy weapons or faster-than-light drives. Instead, they carried railguns, nuclear warheads, and crews who had trained for years for this moment. The Imperial ships tried to adjust, but their tactics were designed to fight other advanced civilizations. They didn't know how to handle enemies who used obsolete weapons and primitive tactics. Their formation broke as they tried to dodge the constant stream of kinetic projectiles. "Their shields are optimized for energy weapons," Reed explained to his crew. They never expected anyone to just throw rocks at them really, really fast. The battle lasted 20 minutes. When it ended, 3 Imperial ships were destroyed, 4 were crippled, and the rest had retreated to the edge of the solar system. Earth's first space battle had ended in victory, but Reed felt no joy. "Send to all commands," he ordered. "Begin Operation Scattered Nest. They'll be back with a bigger fleet. We need to be ready." As his orders went out, Earth's real preparations began. Hidden factories on Mars increased production. Asteroid bases activated their defense systems. And in deep underground bunkers, Scientists studied the debris from the destroyed Imperial ships, looking for weaknesses to exploit. The Empire had made a classic mistake. They had assumed that primitive meant harmless. They had forgotten that humans had spent most of their history fighting wars with simple weapons and clever tactics. They were about to learn that sometimes the old ways were the most dangerous. The asteroid belt was quiet. Too quiet. Captain Miller floated in the darkness of his ship's command room, watching the tactical display. The Empire's battle fleet had arrived 2 days ago, 500 ships strong. They were hunting for human vessels, moving through the solar system like angry wasps. "Status of the mining fleet?" Miller asked softly. "All 30 ships in position, sir," his tactical officer whispered, as if the Empire might hear through space. "They think we're just running scared." Miller allowed himself a small smile. His ships looked like ordinary mining vessels because that's exactly what they had been until a week ago. When the Empire announced their return, every mining ship in the belt had received sealed orders and special cargo. The Imperial fleet was spreading out, following standard search patterns. Their sensors swept space for energy signatures, shield harmonics, and advanced technology. They found nothing but simple mining ships running away. "They're in the web," the tactical officer reported. "Primary group is passing point Alpha." Miller touched his command screen. "All ships, execute Operation Hornet's Nest." The fleeing mining ships suddenly changed course. They didn't fire weapons. They didn't have any. Instead, they released their cargo, millions of metal balls, ranging from marble-sized to basketball-sized. Each ball contained a simple radio transmitter and small maneuvering thrusters. The Imperial fleet found itself surrounded by a cloud of objects, all moving in slightly different directions. Their advanced sensors, trying to track everything at once, began to overload. "Phase 2, Miller ordered. Hidden in previously mapped asteroids, electromagnetic rail launchers activated. They began firing more metal projectiles. But these were different. They contained old-fashioned nuclear weapons, their radiation signatures masked by the asteroids until the moment of launch. The Imperial fleet's formation dissolved into chaos. Their ships couldn't track the countless small objects around them. They couldn't tell which were simple decoys and which were threats. Their energy shields, designed to stop modern weapons, struggled to adjust to the primitive but deadly projectiles. "Sir," the tactical officer called, "Imperial ships are firing on the decoys." Miller nodded. "As expected. Execute Phase 3. The mining ships now released their second cargo, chunks of asteroid that had been hollowed out and filled with nuclear devices. In the confusion, the Imperial ships couldn't distinguish these from the thousands of natural asteroids around them. The battle that followed wasn't elegant. It wasn't fought with precision energy weapons or sophisticated shield harmonics. It was fought with rocks, radiation, and the cold math of Newtonian physics. Imperial ships, trying to dodge nuclear explosions, flew into clouds of hypervelocity metal balls. Ships that survived that found themselves targeted by more nuclear weapons launched from hidden bases in larger asteroids. The few that escaped these threats often hit actual asteroids while trying to maneuver through the chaos. "The Empire's formations are breaking," the tactical officer reported with satisfaction. "They're shooting at everything that moves, including each other in some cases." Miller watched as the mighty Imperial fleet fell apart. Their superior technology meant nothing in this environment. Their sophisticated sensors were overwhelmed, their shields were failing, and their formations were shattered. "Send to all commands," he ordered. "Begin withdrawal. Let them chase shadows." The mining ships slipped away, leaving behind a maze of deadly objects orbiting through space. The Empire had lost 60 ships destroyed, with many more damage. And they still hadn't found a single human warship to fight. In his command room, Miller received a transmission from Earth Defense Command. "Operation Hornet's Nest successful. Begin Phase 2 preparations. They'll adapt to these tactics soon." Miller smiled as he watched his fleet disappear into the asteroid field. The Empire would adapt, but so would humanity. They had already started building new weapons, developing new tactics. The Empire thought they were fighting a simple, primitive species. Instead, they were fighting an enemy who had spent their entire history learning to win against superior forces. As his ship vanished into the darkness of space, Miller remembered an old quote from Earth's history. "We haven't got the guns or money for a bigger army, so we'll have to use our brains." Dr. Hayes stood in her underground laboratory beneath the Martian surface, studying the holographic display of an Imperial shield generator. Around her, 20 of Earth's best scientists worked at various stations, each focused on different pieces of captured Imperial technology. "The Empire thinks in straight lines," she muttered, adjusting the display. "Their shields block energy weapons because that's what they expect everyone to use. But what if we think sideways?" The captured generator hummed softly in its containment chamber. For 3 months, they had been studying it, learning its secrets. The Empire's technology was advanced, but it followed predictable patterns. Every system was perfectly engineered, and that was their weakness. "Doctor," one of her assistants called out, "we finished the analysis of their communication systems. You need to see this." Hayes walked over to his station. The display showed the complex patterns of Imperial communications, and something unexpected. "Are those gaps in their encryption?" The assistant nodded eagerly. "They're using quantum encryption, but it's rigid. They never expected anyone to use simple radio waves alongside quantum signals. The interference creates predictable patterns." Hayes smiled. It was the same story they'd found everywhere in Imperial tech. Advanced, sophisticated, and completely unprepared for primitive solutions used in clever ways. "Begin Phase 2 testing," she ordered. "Let's show them what happens when you combine their technology with human creativity." In another part of the facility, engineers were already building new weapons. They took simple nuclear warheads and wrapped them in salvaged Imperial shield generators, turned backwards. Instead of keeping energy out, they kept it in until the moment of impact. Other teams were adapting old radio technology to slip signals through gaps in Imperial quantum communications. A screen lit up with an incoming call from Earth Defense Command. Admiral Reed's face appeared, looking tired but determined. "Dr. Hayes, please tell me you have something." "The Empire's fleet is adapting to our asteroid belt tactics." "Better than something," Hayes replied. "We've cracked their shield technology. They never considered using their own tech against them. The new weapons will be ready for testing in 24 hours. "Make it 12, Reed said. "We just lost contact with our outer system bases. They're coming in force this time." Hayes nodded and turned to her team. "You heard the Admiral. Double shifts, everyone. Time to show the Empire why humans are dangerous." The next 12 hours were a blur of activity. Hayes and her team worked frantically, combining Imperial technology with human innovations in ways the Empire had never imagined. They created missiles that could slide through Imperial shields by matching their frequency. They developed communication systems that used both quantum and radio waves, making them impossible for the Empire to block completely. But their greatest creation was simpler. Hayes called it the Shield Breaker, a device that used the Empire's own shield technology to create a bubble of pure kinetic force. When fired from Earth's rail guns, it could tear through Imperial defenses like paper. "They think their technology is perfect," Hayes explained to her team as they prepared the first shipment for deployment. "But perfect is predictable. Human technology is messy, improvised, and adaptable. We don't just copy their tech. We make it better by making it worse." As the first shield breakers were loaded onto transports, Hayes received another call, this time from a hidden observation post in the Kuiper Belt. The Imperial fleet was larger than ever, over 1,000 ships, approaching in perfect formation. Hayes smiled as she watched the data. The Empire still hadn't learned. They were still using the same tactics, the same technology, expecting different results. They were about to learn why that was a mistake. "Send word to command," she ordered. Operation Monkey Wrench is ready. Let's show them what happens when humans start thinking creatively with their toys. The Empire had given humanity access to advanced technology, expecting them to take generations to understand it. Instead, humans had done what they always did. They'd broke it down, rebuilt it, and turned it into something the original makers had never imagined possible. Ambassador Gray watched the secret meeting from his corner of the darkroom. Representatives from 20 different alien species had gathered in this hidden base on a forgotten moon. They were all here for the same reason: to learn from the humans. "Show us again," a reptilian delegate asked, "how your ships defeated the Imperial fleet." Admiral Reeves stood at the center of the room, pointing to a hologram of the asteroid belt battle. "The key isn't the weapons," he explained. "It's the way of thinking. The Empire expects everyone to fight the same way they do. We simply refuse to play by their rules." The delegates murmured among themselves. Many of them represented worlds that had been under Imperial control for centuries. They had never considered resistance possible until they saw what humanity had done. "But the Empire's ships are superior," another delegate argued. "Their technology is beyond anything we have." "Superior technology doesn't always win wars," Reed replied. He showed them images of Earth's history. "Our people fought wars for thousands of years. We learned that victory often goes to those who adapt, not those who have the best weapons." Gray stepped forward. "I can confirm this. My people watched Earth for a century. Humans have a unique ability. They learn from every defeat. They never make the same mistake twice." The hologram changed to show Earth's new hybrid weapons, Imperial technology combined with human innovation. The delegates leaned forward, their eyes wide with interest. "We're not asking you to fight for us," Reed continued. "We're offering to teach you how to fight for yourselves. The Empire's greatest weakness is their predictability. They've ruled for so long, they've forgotten how to handle the unexpected." A tall crystalline being spoke up. "The Empire's response to rebellion is always the same. They destroy the rebel world as an example to others." Reed smiled. "They tried that with Earth. Would you like to see what happened?" The hologram showed the recent battle for Mars. The Empire had sent their planet killer ships, expecting an easy victory. Instead, they found a trap. Earth's new shield breaker weapons had torn their fleet apart. The supposedly invincible planet killers had been destroyed by weapons that shouldn't have worked. "The Empire thinks they own the galaxy," Reed said quietly. "But they don't understand it. They see less advanced species and assume we're primitive. They forget that struggling to survive makes you stronger." One by one, the delegates began to nod. They had all felt the Empire's contempt, had all been treated as inferiors. Now they were seeing another way. "We've prepared information packages for each of your worlds," Reed explained. "Simple technologies that the Empire won't expect. Tactics they won't understand. Ways to turn their own technology against them." Gray watched with satisfaction as the delegates crowded around Reed, asking questions, learning to think in new ways. His warning to the Empire had been ignored, but he had been right. Humans were dangerous, not because they were violent, but because they never stopped learning, never stopped adapting. In a quiet corner, he checked his secret communicator. Reports were coming in from across the galaxy. Imperial fleets were being attacked by supposedly primitive weapons. Colonial worlds were using Earth-inspired tactics to fight back. The Empire's perfect order was dissolving into chaos. "The Empire made two mistakes," he whispered to himself. "They underestimated humans, and they gave them time to prepare." As the meeting continued, more delegates arrived secretly. Each one represented a world ready to learn, ready to fight back. The Empire had ruled through fear and superior technology, but humanity had shown the galaxy something more powerful: hope. The resistance wasn't just growing. It was evolving, learning, becoming something the Empire couldn't predict or control. And at its heart were the humans, teaching others what they had learned through thousands of years of warfare. Sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't the strongest, but the most unexpected. The Imperial High Commander stood in his flagship's command center, watching his empire crumble on the massive display screen. Red dots marked worlds in open rebellion. Yellow showed planets demanding independence. Green indicated loyal worlds. The red was spreading like a virus. How? He demanded. How did one primitive species cause all this? His advisors stayed silent. They had no answer. The empire had ruled for 10,000 years through superior technology and absolute order. Now that order was breaking down, and their technology wasn't helping. A communication officer spoke up nervously. "Sir, Ambassador Gray is requesting to address the High Council. He says it's about the humans." "The one who warned us," the High Commander growled. "Put him on screen." Gray appeared on the display, looking calmer than ever. "I tried to tell you," he said simply. "Humans are dangerous because they think differently. Now they've taught others to think differently too. We'll crush them," the High Commander shouted. "We're gathering our entire fleet. 10,000 ships. We'll destroy Earth as an example." "You still don't understand," Gray replied sadly. "Look at your fleet gathering. Look at how perfectly organized it is. How predictable. The humans are counting on that." Warning alarms suddenly blared through the command center. On the tactical display, hundreds of small ships appeared among the Imperial fleet. They were old trading vessels, mining ships, even passenger liners, all converted to weapons platforms. Imperial ships, this is Admiral Reed of the Earth Defense Force. A human voice announced on all channels. "You're surrounded by shield breaker weapons. Your fancy formations just made our job easier." The High Commander watched in horror as his perfect fleet fell into chaos. The rebel ships were using modified Imperial technology in ways that shouldn't work. Shields failed. Communications jammed. The mighty Imperial warships found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to follow any rules of proper warfare. "You had 10,000 years to improve your technology," Gray said, still watching. "Humans had 2 years to learn how to break it. That's the difference. You perfect what you have. They always look for new ways." The battle wasn't even fair. The Imperial fleet's rigid command structure collapsed under attacks it couldn't predict. Ships tried to maintain formation even as those formations became death traps. Captains waited for orders instead of adapting to the situation. "Enough," the High Commander shouted. "I'll surrender. Just explain how they did this." The battle paused. Admiral Reed's voice came back on the channel. "We didn't do anything special. We just looked at your technology and asked questions you never thought to ask. Like, what happens if you reverse a shield generator? What happens if you combine quantum communications with radio waves? What happens if you take a perfect system and make it imperfect on purpose?" Gray stepped forward on his screen. "The humans have terms for peace. They're very simple. Freedom for any world that wants it. The Empire can continue, but only with worlds that choose to stay." The High Commander looked at his display again. The red dots of rebellion now covered half the galaxy, and on every one of those worlds, people were learning to think in new ways, learning to question, learning to adapt. "We accept," he said quietly. Later, as the peace treaty was being signed on Earth, Gray stood with Admiral Reed watching the sunrise. "You could have destroyed them completely," Gray observed. Reed shook his head. "That's what they would have done. We just wanted to show them a better way. Besides," he smiled, "keeping some of the Empire around gives us someone to trade with, learn from, and compete against. Humans get bored without challenges." Gray laughed. "You know, that's exactly why I warned them about you in the first place. Humans never stop looking for new challenges." "No," Reed agreed, watching ships from 100 worlds coming and going in Earth's sky. "But now we've taught the rest of the galaxy to do the same. Life's more interesting that way." The Empire had learned its lesson. The most dangerous species aren't the ones with the best weapons or the most advanced technology. The most dangerous species are the ones who never stop learning, never stop adapting, and never believe anything is impossible.